Once you start using Ruby gems and plugins, your application code starts to depend on them. And if you move your application to another server or you share development with other developers, you'll want those copies of your application to have the same gems and plugins installed, and the same versions loaded in the same order even. Plugins are usually installed in the application's vendor plugins folder, so they'll be included with the application. But that's not true with the gems. They're stored in a central repository outside of the application folder. This used to be a benefit, but now it creates a problem. The Rails team has tried a few different solutions to this problem. We won't bother looking at the old ones because the current one is Bundler. Bundler is itself a gem that's automatically downloaded when you install Rails. You can think of it as a manifest or a packing list for your application, as well as a gem installer. Bundler works like a packing list because in the root of every Rails application, there's a file called gemfile, which lists all the gems needed for the application. When the application launches, this file will be executed like a checklist to make sure that everything is installed and available. At a minimum, that file will contain something like this. Now, source is just a declaration for where to find any missing gems. We'll get to that in a second. After that, you just list the gems that are required, and if it matters, the order they need to be loaded. If you had additional gems to add to the application, you would just add them as new lines to the bottom of this list. You can also specify which version of a gem to use, like this. The first example is requiring that Rails version 3.00 or later be installed. That makes sure we don't try and use Rails before that because our code won't support it. The second example for MySQL requires that a very specific version be installed, and only that exact version will do. Now, either not specifying the version or using the first way is usually a better choice unless there's a reason to be very picky, such as a known problem with the later version, which does happen sometimes. In either case, specifying a version is not only a great way for making sure that a gem has the features for your code to run, it also allows multiple versions of a gem to be installed in Ruby gems. Then each application can pick the version that it needs and ignore the others. Bundler is also like a gem installer because it can check that gem file and then install any gems that are missing. It first checks your application folder to make sure you don't have them there, and then checks the gem repositories on your computer to make sure you don't already have them installed. If it can't find the gem in one of those places, then it tries to install it from the source list listed in the gem file. Here are the Bundler commands that you'll need that will do this. From the root directory of a Rails 3.0 application, you can type bundle, and you'll get a list of all the bundle commands that are available. Bundle show will show you all of the required gems. Now, I say all in bold because it's not just the gems that have been listed in the manifest. They might also have requirements of their own. So, for example, requiring Rails, Rails also requires active record. It requires action controller, action view. Those are all requirements of Rails. All we have to do is require the top level gem, and everything else is required by it. So Bundle show will show you the full list. And it's important to realize that that's what Bundler is doing for you. It's not just checking for the contents of your gem file. It's also looking at the gems to see what's required in their gem files as well. The next command is bundle check. That will check whether the required gems are installed. Now, if something's not installed, it'll just report that it's not installed. It won't actually do anything. Bundle install will both perform the check and take the additional step of installing any gems that are missing. Now, is Bundler a kind of replacement for Ruby gems? No, not at all. For example, you can't use Bundle to uninstall gems. Bundler really just has one purpose, ensuring that an application has all the gems that it needs. Now, because Bundler is a recent addition to Rails, it's a good idea to also know about the Ruby Bundler website. That's where you can get more information and documentation about Ruby Bundler, but also if something were to change or if new features were to be added, this would be a great resource to find out that information.